When the world went quiet, the fear began. The ringing in my ears was a phantom echo, a desperate memory of a time when silence wasn't a weight. It had been years since the last car horn, the last distant siren, and still, every breath I took felt like a trespass against the profound, terrifying stillness that had swallowed everything. That's when I truly understood the meaning of dread. It's been 2 years now, and the memory still tastes like ash, a grit behind my teeth that refuses to be scoured away. This occurred around that time, during what I recall as an unremarkable Tuesday, the kind of day that usually blurred into the mundane tapestry of urban existence. I woke to the usual weak light filtering through my apartment window, expecting the familiar symphony of a city rousing itself. The distant rumble of the early morning train, the chirping complaint of my neighbor's dog, the muffled shouts of construction workers starting their shift down the street. These were the threads of sound that wove the fabric of my mornings. They were a comfort, a proof of life stirring beyond my walls. But that day, the threads were frayed. At first, I didn't notice, or rather I dismissed the nascent quiet as a lingering effect of sleep, a fleeting moment before the world truly caught up. I pushed the button on my ancient coffee maker, listened for the familiar gurgle and hiss, and registered only a soft click, the whir of internal mechanisms stripped of their usual acoustic accompaniment. It was odd, a little unnerving, like watching a movie with the sound muted just enough to make the gestures seem slightly off-kilter. I moved to the kitchen, poured the dark liquid into my mug. No clink of ceramic against countertop, no distant traffic drone from the street below, just the faint whisper of my own movements, unnatural. I walked to the window, pulled back the curtain. Below, the street was bathed in the same dull morning light, but something was profoundly wrong. The usual stream of early commuters, the delivery trucks, the bustling pedestrians, they were all there, moving in slow, silent motion. A man in a business suit was gesturing emphatically at his phone, his mouth moving, but no sound reached me. A woman pushed a stroller, its wheels making no discernible squeak against the pavement. The construction site, usually a hive of metallic clang and guttural shouts, stood almost perfectly still. A single worker, frozen mid-swing with a hammer, a tableau of suspended action, a knot formed in my stomach, cold and tight. This wasn't a temporary lull. This was absolute. I pressed my palm against the window pane, as if to absorb some stray vibration, some lost frequency. Nothing. The world outside, the one I had always known, had simply ceased its humming. I tried to speak, to call out a name, any name, just to hear my own voice. My throat felt thick, constricted, and the sound that emerged was a pathetic, strangled gasp, swallowed almost instantly by the profound stillness. It wasn't merely the absence of external sound. It felt like a vacuum, sucking away even the potential for noise. The air itself felt dense, as if infused with a heavy, unspoken presence. It wasn't the quiet of a library or a deserted field. It was the quiet of something taken. My initial confusion morphed into a prickle of genuine fear. I reached for my phone, my fingers fumbling. No dial tone, no vibration, no distant ring from Lena, who often called me around this hour to share some new discovery for her crafts. It wasn't just my subjective experience then. The silence was external, pervasive. It enveloped everything, every device, every potential for sonic connection. It pressed in, not with force, but with an insistent, chilling absence that suggested the world had not just gone quiet, but had forgotten how to breathe. The city, once a vibrant organism, was now a still life, a macabre diorama. I remember thinking then, with a shiver that had nothing to do with the morning chill, that the world had simply stopped, and we were all just echoes within its sudden, cavernous void. Days bled into weeks, each one a slow, silent descent into a deeper stratum of unease. The city, once my refuge, had become an immense, soundless tomb, its towering structures like monuments to a forgotten language. That profound quiet, initially just unnerving, had curdled into an oppressive psychological weight. It pressed in from all sides, a tangible presence that never left, transforming the familiar comfort of my apartment into a cage. Every shadow seemed deeper, every corner held an unseen observer. My own footsteps, once muffled by the urban din, now echoed with a stark, unnerving clarity, betraying my every move. I remembered the world with sound, a time when noise had been a comforting, constant blanket. The low hum of the refrigerator, the distant rumble of subway cars beneath the earth, the sheer, undeniable proof of other lives unfolding. Now that blanket had been stripped away, leaving me exposed to something far more insidious than emptiness. It felt like a deliberate act, a deliberate removal, rather than a simple cessation. The silence wasn't a void, it was a hungry, watchful entity. My internal world became a relentless battleground against creeping paranoia. Every creak of the ancient buildings settled into my bones, a magnified groan of ancient wood, a potential harbinger of something unseen stirring just beyond my perception. The whisper of my own breath in the stillness was a startling intrusion, a reminder of the fragile, noisy life still trapped within me. I found myself holding it, just to eradicate that minute sound, until my lungs ached. Sometimes, in the dead, silent middle of what used to be night, I would swear I heard something else, a faint, almost imperceptible thrum beneath the floorboards, or a subtle shift in the air, like a massive body moving in an adjacent room. My logical mind screamed for reason, for an explanation, but my gut knew better. It wasn't the building settling. It was something else, something I couldn't name, couldn't see, but could feel drawing closer. The absence of sound wasn't just an emptiness. It was a chilling, invasive presence. It leached into the corners of my mind, painting every waking moment with the hues of dread. I started cataloging the things I missed, the trivial, forgotten sounds, the hiss of a faucet, the click of a light switch, the rustle of turning pages. Each recalled sound was a ghost, a reminder of a life that was now utterly alien. The world had gone quiet, yes, but it hadn't gone dead. It was simply holding its breath, waiting. For what, I couldn't comprehend, but the implication gnawed at me like a persistent parasite. It was during one of my forced forays to a nearby grocery store, now a desolate monument to forgotten commerce, that the unsettling implication solidified. I had been sifting through abandoned shelves, my movements painstakingly slow, attempting to avoid drawing any attention to my solitary form. The dust motes danced in the shafts of sunlight slicing through the grime-streaked windows, undisturbed.
As I knelt to examine a forgotten can of preserved fruit, my eyes caught a small detail in the periphery. A child's red ball, half deflated, lay nestled beside a stack of overturned boxes. Nothing inherently strange about that in a world that had suddenly ceased. But beside it, barely visible, was a small, perfectly carved wooden bird, resting as if carefully placed. Its painted eyes, a brilliant blue, seemed to stare directly at me, despite the dust.
It wasn't chipped. It wasn't weathered. It looked as if it had been set down only moments before, waiting to be picked up. The implication struck me cold. That small, silent, perfect thing, abandoned amidst the chaos, hinted at a different kind of ending, a gentler, more deliberate leaving than the sudden cessation I had experienced.